Most home buyers think they're being careful, but did you know there are 16 invisible mistakes that could be sabotaging your finances? And one of them could even be costing you more than $50,000. Welcome to Money Shape Up. I'm Dr. Linda Hamilton, author of Pay It in 5. We paid our home loan off in 5 years, and today I'm walking you through 16 of the most expensive and avoidable home buying mistakes. These aren't your usual buy within your means tips. Instead, we'll be diving into what really derails people, the emotions, the contract traps, the budgeting myths, and the psychology that tricks us into making poor financial decisions. Let's set you up to buy smarter, to save more, and to avoid regret. Whether you're buying your first home or your forever home, avoiding these can help you save time and money. Mistake number 1, borrowing the maximum. Many first home buyers stretch themselves to the top of their borrowing capacity. They cap out on their home loan because they want the best bang for their buck. This is often based on emotions because you want to buy the best property that you can with the money that you have. But this is not a financial strategy. When you max out your budget and you max out your home loan, there's very little room for change. What if interest rates rise? What if you have an unexpected expense like a leaking roof? Or what if your personal situation changes? Maxing out your home loan leaves you little room if things change. It can lead to financial stress and make it harder for you to build wealth if you're looking to make extra repayments or to save for your next property. There are 2 psychological biases at play here: optimism bias and present bias. Optimism bias is the tendency to assume that the best scenario will happen. For example, over the next 30 years of our home loan, we will expect that our income will keep increasing, our interest rates will stay manageable, and that we won't have any financial hardships over that 30-year period. But the truth is, life happens. It's important that you do set yourself up so you can withstand any financial hardships that might come along. Present bias is getting swept up in what feels good now without thinking about the long-term consequences. It's why people get caught up wanting things like the beautiful kitchen, the city views, or to be living in the trending suburb, even if it pushes them to the edge of their budget. But those short-term wins often come with long-term costs. Borrowing the most you can borrow leaves you little room for life to happen. It also limits your ability to make extra repayments and to start building wealth or building your own equity. It can lead you to getting stuck fast. Most people who borrow the maximum they could possibly borrow say things like, well, it doesn't matter because the property will grow in value anyway. If you want to know why this myth doesn't actually stick, watch this video on buying the most expensive house you could possibly afford. So what's the smarter move? Avoid taking out the biggest home loan that you could possibly take out, and instead buy something where you can make extra repayments so that you can build up equity and you can move on to your next property sooner. If you haven't got a home loan yet, watch our masterclass on how you can buy smarter before you get a home loan. And if you're not sure if your home loan is setting you up or stretching you too thin, then test it out on our free home loan calculator. There's a link in the description. Because financial freedom doesn't start when you pay off your home loan. It starts when you structure it right from the start. Mistake number 2, not having a financial buffer. Is your deposit just enough to get the property? If it is, that just enough could be costing you thousands, even before you get the keys. When you buy property, there are upfront costs that you might not be aware of, and it's important to give yourself a buffer so that you can be prepared for those costs when they happen. The same 2 psychological biases are at play here as well, the optimism bias and the present bias. People who don't give themselves a financial buffer think that the worst won't happen to them. But this mindset ignores the very real financial risks when buying property. For example, in this video, I talk about the hidden surprise that completely caught us off guard on our first property. We were lucky we had a buffer so we could withstand it. But if you fail to give yourself a proper buffer, then you could be wearing extra costs that you're not expecting. This creates a false sense of security, and we just assume that everything's going to go to plan. You might not even realize that when you're buying property, things don't always work out. It's not usually that simple. When you don't give yourself a financial buffer, even small unexpected costs like a contract delay or strata fees or a bank valuation shortfall, it could cost you in the long run, and it could cost you thousands. For example, if you can't meet the extra fees, then you might need to end up taking out lender's mortgage insurance, which can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Give yourself a decent buffer before you buy property, and make sure you know the hidden costs that could come up when you buy property. It might mean you end up buying a less expensive property, or you save for a bit longer before buying. Either way, give yourself a decent buffer so you're buying from a position of strength. Don't let rush decisions or a missing buffer cost you thousands. Mistake number 3, underestimating the true cost of buying property. Buying a home is one of the biggest purchases of your life, and surprises aren't very fun when they cost you thousands of dollars. We've been through them, that's why I'm sharing them here so that you don't make the same mistakes we did. Buying property comes with a number of surprising hidden costs, and ignoring these can leave you short, stressed, or in real financial trouble. The main psychological trap that trips up buyers here is the planning fallacy. The planning fallacy is our tendency to underestimate the time, the cost, and the complexity of a future task, even when we know better. We end up focusing on the ideal scenario and not reality. In home buying, this shows up as, let's just get the property and figure it out later. This leads us to think that the only costs involved are a deposit and the home loan, and we forget about all the other costs like stamp duty, mortgage insurance, the cost of moving, furniture, and other fees. When you fall in love with a property that you just have to have, your brain doesn't think about all of the extra costs or all the other things that could come into it. You just want that property. When you know what you're really in for, when those extra costs do come up, you won't be stressed or in financial trouble. Set yourself up. You'll factor in all your costs, you'll give yourself a buffer, and it means you won't be scrambling when it comes to buying. I created my own buying budget calculator so you can list out all of the costs so that you know what you're in for when you're buying property, and you can plan it out the smart way. Use the calculator to set yourself a buying budget so that you know all the costs that you're in for before you buy. It's free and the link is in the description. Mistake number 4. Ignoring lifestyle changes. You've planned for your home loan, but have you planned for your life? What happens when your income drops, your family grows, or your job changes? A lot of home buyers and first home buyers are so focused on getting the property and getting into a property that they forget to ask, well, will this still work for me in 5 to 10 years' time? Will I still want to live here? This mistake is all about forgetting to future-proof your property decision. The present bias is at play here. We think about what we want now and we forget about what our long-term future might look like. We've got an urge to secure the deal, to win the bid, to move in fast, and we forget to step back and think about, will this still work for us in a few years' time? If life happens, and sometimes it does, you could outgrow the property, you might end up struggling financially, or you could even be forced to sell. When buying a property, think past the next 12 months. What might my life look like in about 10 years' time? Sometimes the best property decisions are not just about what's affordable today, but about what still makes sense tomorrow. Plan before you buy. Mistake number 5, buying the forever home. Think your first home has to be your forever home? That mindset could be the thing that is stopping you from getting into the market or pushing you to take on way too much debt. One of the most common traps that first home buyers tend to fall into is thinking that their first home has to be their forever home. That means ticking every box: the dream kitchen, the perfect suburb, and the big backyard for future kids. But here's the catch. Aiming for that perfect property can push you into overextending your home loan and taking out more than you need to just to secure the home that you have to have. This could be due to all or nothing thinking that you've got to have your dream home and your forever home, or otherwise, why bother? This kind of thinking creates unrealistic expectations and adds pressure to buy the most expensive house you could possibly afford. One of the biggest mistakes first home buyers make is misunderstanding the meaning of a first home. First means something that comes before something else, and home is a place in which somebody lives. In buying a first home, there's an assumption that you're going to move on to buy another property later. And instead of moving forward, you end up in a property that you're stuck in. Or worse, you could end up broke. Your first home does not have to be your forever home. It's okay to buy a property that's a stepping stone. It doesn't have to be the perfect house. When you see it as a stepping stone, as something that you're not going to live in forever, then you'll buy something that you only want to be in for a short amount of time. and you'll buy something that's cheaper that you can move on from faster. When we purchased our first property, we knew we wanted to pay it off in 5 years. We knew it was a stepping stone house so that we could buy our next property sooner. When we did this, we saved ourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we were able to buy and secure a second property pretty quickly and still keep the first. It's easy to get caught up buying a forever home or competing with the Joneses. The good news is you don't have to. You don't have to buy the perfect house like everybody else is. Flip the script, buy something manageable, build equity, and move on faster. If you want to buy something that you can pay off in 5 to 10 years, we have a free calculator to help you figure out how much to borrow so that you can buy smarter. The link is in the description. Start where you can, build steadily, and move on faster than you would otherwise. Mistake number 6, prioritizing the shiny over the solid. Stunning kitchen, designer tiles, fresh paint. Looks perfect, right? A huge mistake that property buyers make is getting distracted by the shiny objects. It's easy to fall in love with the finishes and forget to look under the surface. Here's what matters more than the styling: the structure, the layout, and the land. These are things that can't always be changed. But if you're not checking the layout, the structure, or the location, could just be buying a beautifully wrapped problem. The main psychological trap that trips up buyers here is saliency is our tendency to focus on the most obvious or attention-grabbing features. So the things that stand out. In property, that usually means the visual stuff, the fresh paint, the shiny floors, and the trendy kitchen. These details are easy to remember and hijack your attention. What seems like a dream deal might actually be a money pit if you don't look under the surface. Because the shiny things are so loud, they drown out what's more important. Just because it looks good on the surface doesn't mean it's a good buy, and it could risk your enjoyment of the property and also on future resale value. Before you fall for the finishes, there are 2 things that you can think about. Number 1, ask yourself, if this had an ugly kitchen, would I still buy it? And number 2, ask yourself what would be impossible to fix or really costly. And think about the location. Is it noisy? Is it next to a school? Is it next to a field that gets used every weekend or weekend? Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's a good buy. Look for something solid over shiny. Remember, a place can be repainted and tiles can be swapped, but it's difficult to work with a bad layout and to fix problem issues like noisy neighborhood. Mistake number 7, not understanding the repayment structure. Think every repayment is shrinking your home loan? Most people assume that when they're making repayments, they're chipping away at their home loan. That doesn't work like that. It actually favors the lender. Most of your repayments are going towards interest in the early years. That means if you've been paying your home loan off for 2 years already, you've barely put a dent into actual home loan. In fact, about 85% of your repayments will go just to interest. So if you're paying $1,000 on your home loan every month, $850 is going straight to interest. This mistake is fueled by something known as the illusion of progress. This bias happens when we feel like we're making headways when we're actually not. In this case, when people get a home loan, they're assuming that the thousands of dollars of repayments that they're making is actually paying off their home loan when it's not. It gives buyers a false sense of achievement and makes it less likely that they'll make extra repayments on their home loan because they think that they're already making headway. If you think you're already making good progress, that could stop you taking action. If you don't understand how your home loan is structured, you could be missing out on the most powerful wealth building tool that's available. Making extra repayments in the early years. Those extra repayments in the early years can shave off years off your home loan and can save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on your home loan. If you already have a home loan, we have a free calculator to help you work out how much of your repayments are actually going towards interest and how much is going towards a home loan. The link is in the description. And if you want to know more, watch this video on why the banks want you to be stuck in a 30-year home loan. Look at your repayments. Learn exactly where your repayments are going and make it a priority to take action to make higher repayments early on. Banks profit when you misunderstand how a home loan works, but you don't have to play that game. Take control early and your future self will thank you. Mistake number 8, ignoring the loan structure. One of the biggest mistakes of home buyers is ignoring the structure of their home loan. Not all home loans are created equal, and the wrong one could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars extra in interest. Whether it's fixed versus variable, offset versus redraw, many buyers don't take the time to understand the difference. Instead, they'll rely on what the lender suggests, or they'll pick the one that sounds the easiest, without thinking about how it might impact their future costs or what their repayments might be like. This mistake is driven by a bias called information overload, and it's purposefully like this. When we're presented with too many options or too much technical information, our brain tends to freeze up. And what happens is that buyers will go with a loan option that is suggested, or will go with something that sounds familiar. And not because it's the best choice, but because they're just too overwhelmed, too overloaded with jargon like offset, redraw, split loans, comparison rate. Here's the risk. You could lock yourself into a loan that's not right for your situation. It's really important that you consider the loan structure that's right for you. Just because your lender has suggested a loan doesn't mean it's a right option for you. Do your own research to find out what would work for you. Take your time to learn about the different loan types and choose one that works for your financial goals and your situation. You don't need to become an expert, you just need to understand some key differences so that when you meet with your lender, you can ask the right questions and you can negotiate to what you need. If you want to know the pros and cons of each loan type, check out this video. Mistake number 9, not comparing lenders or loans. If your home loan is the most expensive thing you'll ever buy, then why not shop around? Most people wouldn't buy the first car that they test drive, but they often do it with home loans. They'll go with the first lender that they meet. One of the most common mistakes home buyers make is to go with the home loan that's first offered to them, or to go with the bank that they already know. This means they could miss out on better interest rates, smarter features, or loan structures that would suit them better. This mistake is often caused by two sneaky psychological biases: the status quo bias and the anchoring bias. The status quo bias is the tendency to stick with what's familiar, like the current bank that you have. And the anchoring bias is relying too heavily on the first piece of information that is received, like accepting the first offer that's available. Together, these biases trap buyers into believing that what they get is normal and what they have is a pretty good deal, even when better deals exist. Don't get locked into a 30-year offer just because it's familiar or it's the first thing that you received. You don't want to miss out on a better interest rate or better features like an offset account just because you didn't shop around. Be strategic, compare different lenders, compare different loan types, compare different interest rates. Even just a 20-minute Google search can help you find other options. When you get a home loan, you don't have to settle for what's convenient. Shop around, be informed, and get smart about making this decision. It's a big one. Mistake number 10, skipping the legal review. Would you sign a contract for $500,000 without reading the fine print? And it's exactly what's happening when buyers skip the legal review. A major mistake that home buyers make, often to save time and money, is to skip the legal review. This is especially true when buying at auction or rushing into a sale. This opens the door to unseen clauses, hidden defects, or even legal traps that could cost you thousands. This comes down to the optimism bias, which is our tendency to think that bad outcomes won't happen to us. You might think, well, it's a standard contract. What could go wrong? That assumption could lead to massive costs. Because here's the danger. Once you sign, you're locked in. For example, during auctions, there's no cooling off period. And even on a private sale, trying to get out of a contract could be almost impossible and very costly. Without a proper legal review, you could end up in a financial mess. Always have your contract reviewed by a legal professional before you sign. You're not just buying a home, you're signing up for a legal and financial commitment. Protect your future by knowing what you're signing. Mistake 11, skipping the building and pest inspection. You wouldn't buy a second-hand car without checking under the hood. So why buy a property without checking behind the walls? A surprisingly common mistake is skipping the building and pest inspection and thinking that because the building looks fine, it must be fine. But lurking issues could be there that you're not aware of. There could be issues like termites, structural damage, water leaks, or even sewage problems. This is a classic case of normalcy bias, which is our tendency to underestimate the likelihood of a disaster. The place might look pretty clean and pretty solid, but we think that nothing major is going to happen. We assume that there are no major issues and that we'll be able to go in there and live in there as normal. But if you skip the inspection, you're gambling with one of the biggest purchases of your life. You you could end up with unexpected repairs, safety risks, or even insurance issues, all of which could have been avoided with a few $100s up front. Buying a property can be emotional. It's important to look beyond the surface, to look behind the fresh paint, and to see what could be really lurking in that building. Do your due diligence and get an inspection. Mistake number 12, ignoring strata rules and fees. You wouldn't join a club without knowing the rules, so why buy a unit without reading the strata report? Because once you're in, you're responsible. That affordable unit could end up with costly fees and strict rules that you weren't aware of. And when you ignore the strata report, you ignore the rules and you ignore the financials. You might not be aware that there could be some bylaws in there. That means you could be hit with upcoming maintenance costs that you're not aware of. You could be hit with unexpected levies or stuck in a legal dispute over renovations. There are two psychological traps at play here: the ostrich effect and the Dunning-Kruger effect. The ostrich effect, which is like the name suggests, we want to stick our head into the sand because we want to avoid or ignore the unpleasant things or the things that are overcomplicated. In this case, we'd be skipping the strata report because it's overwhelming and there's a lot to unpack in it. The Dunning-Kruger effect, on the other hand, is our tendency to overestimate our own knowledge in an area where we're probably quite inexperienced. For example, I know what strata is, we just have to pay an amount every quarter and that's it. Both lead to the same outcome where the buyer ignores the fine print and ends up blindsided by the rules or blindsided by the financial state of the building. Strata comes with shared responsibility. So if a building comes with urgent repairs, then you're paying for your share. And if you don't read the financials, you won't see it coming. Always review the strata report before buying the property, or even have a professional review it for you. If you want to know what to look for in the strata report, check out this video. Buying a property is not always just about the property. If you're buying into a strata property, then it's about the rules, the community, the finances, and the fine print. Make sure you're covered. Mistake number 13. Over-relying on pre-approval. Got your pre-approval? That's great, but don't pop the champagne bottle just yet. Getting a pre-approval for a home loan doesn't mean you'll actually get the home loan. Many home buyers believe that once they've got pre-approval, they're locked, loaded, and ready to buy. But here's the truth. Pre-approval is just a maybe. It's conditional, and lenders can revoke it at any time if your situation changes, or if anything changes, even just slightly. For example, even if there are issues with the property or it comes in at a lower value than what you're paying for it, then you might not get the home loan, even after you've already signed and after you've paid your deposit. And if you're not careful, you could lose your deposit. This mistake is driven by the overconfidence bias, which is our tendency to overestimate the certainty of an outcome. In this case, it shows up as buyers thinking, I've got pre-approval, I'm good to go. Buying a property is one of the biggest financial moves you'll ever make. And if you assume that you're locked in, you could lose everything. Buyers have lost deposits. They've lost $100,000, they've lost $300,000, they've lost $500,000 because they thought they were safe. Before you commit to a contract, make sure that your finances are genuinely secure. And remember, your pre-approval is not a green light, it's a yellow one. Pause, prepare, and make sure that you're really ready to go. Mistake number 14, chasing the perfect property. If you're still waiting for the perfect property, you might be waiting forever. Because here's the truth, there is no perfect property, and chasing that perfect property could cost you. One of the biggest traps home buyers fall into is searching for the best possible house for the money that they've got. And this is the biggest, best house with the biggest home loan that they can get. But keep looking, hoping that the next one will check every box. Perfect location, dream kitchen, great layout, big backyard, north facing, and under budget. But mindset can delay your decision. You'll miss out on great opportunities that just weren't perfect on paper, and it can lead you to overpaying on features that you don't need. This mistake plays out because of perfectionism, which is our desire to make the perfect choice even if it's unrealistic. Start comparing every home to an imaginary checklist of the ideal property. That perfect property is in the next price bracket, so you end up overstretching your budget just to get the perfect property. Perfectionism creates decision paralysis because you're delaying buying the perfect property because you can't find the perfect property. You nitpick, you hesitate, and you reject properties that actually meet your needs, which could lead to disappointment. In the meantime, prices keep increasing. When you're chasing perfectionism, you'll end up stretching your budget as far as it will go, and you will push it to its limit because you'll be chasing that dream home. And in reality, that dream home is not perfect either. Shift your focus from perfect to practical. Instead of trying to tick every box, prioritize the big things. Things like the location, the long-term value, the structure, and the layout. Trade-offs are normal. A good enough property in a great location beats the perfect property in the wrong location. Buying a property, and particularly a first home, is not about perfectionism. When you're buying property, you're buying somebody else's issues. There's no such thing as a perfect property. Mistake number 15, over-improving after purchase. You bought your property and now you're thinking new kitchen, fancy lights, custom wardrobe, and spa. Hold up, that Pinterest board could turn into a money pit. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new purchase. You finally have a property that's yours and you're thinking upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. But here's the trap. Taking on too many upgrades for a property that you're not going to live in forever could backfire. This is called over-improving or over-capitalizing, where your upgrades go above and beyond the market value. Over-capitalizing can drain your finances, it can increase your debt, or it can tie up money that you're going to need later. Not all upgrades are created equal. Some upgrades do add value, but others leave you out of pocket. Over-improving is often driven by two psychological traps: the projection bias and the IKEA effect. The projection bias is our tendency to assume that what we love and what we want is what other people love and what other people want. And the IKEA effect is our tendency to overvalue the things that we've designed or we've built, even if they don't add much value. Before you start renovating everything, take a step back. Think about the upgrades you're planning. Budget for upgrades that improve livability and improve the long-term value of your property. And ask yourself, would other buyers value the upgrades? Sometimes small updates go further than a full refurb and a full remodel. So think about what you're upgrading and think about the value that it's going to add to your property rather than just fixing everything. You don't need a perfect house. Be strategic and smart about where you're putting your upgrades and think about your long-term future. And mistake number 16, letting emotions drive the purchase. It feels perfect. You make an offer, but later the regret hits you harder than the mortgage repayments. One of the most common and costly mistakes is letting your emotions drive your purchase. When buying property, particularly a first home, it's easy for emotions to take over, and these emotions can become your biggest threat. You walk into a beautifully styled home, the sun hits just right, and your heart flutters. And then all the red flags disappear. You fall in love with the property. And this blinds you from seeing the financial risk of taking on such a big mortgage. This mistake is driven by a psychological shortcut known as affect heuristic. It happens when you let emotions overtake and guide your decision to buy more than you use your logic. And this happens often in property buying. You find a property and it looks good and it feels good, and your brain is telling you, yes, this is it, this is meant to be, even if it's not. When you let emotions take over, you might overbid in a hot market. You might ignore red flags or deal-breaking flaws that you wouldn't have otherwise missed. You might stretch your budget too far, and you might not even realise until you're locked in and it's too late. This one mistake is the most dangerous because it can trigger many of the other 15 mistakes we talked about. If you want to learn how to take the emotion out of buying without losing the joy of the journey, I have a free masterclass on strategic buying just for you. There's a link in the description. You don't have to be a cold-hearted robot to make smart property decisions. What you need is a good plan and the courage to walk away when the numbers don't stack up. Get informed, stay focused, and let your head lead your heart, not the other way around. If you found this useful, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a money muscle workout, and comment below with the mistakes that you've seen home buyers make or things that might have caught you off guard. And before you go, I have an exclusive offer for you. I launch Money Shape Up in 2025, and each month in 2025, I'm giving away a free copy of my book, Paid in 5. If you'd like to win a copy, click the link in the description. Happy house hunting and see you in the next one.